Okay, so let's dive into this. Imagine a real head-scratcher of a mystery. Someone walks into a public place. It's busy, people everywhere.
Right.
And according to every single camera pointed at the exits, they just vanish. They go in, but they're never, ever seen coming out.
It really does sound like something out of fiction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like one of those classic locked room puzzles. But the really unsettling part is that this actually happened, or it seems to have happened.
Exactly. And that's the core puzzle we're exploring in this deep dive. We're looking at the truly mysterious disappearance of Brian Shaffer. He was a 27-year-old medical student.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole mystery, based on the material you share, really pivots around this one place, the Ugly Tuna Saloona. It's a bar in Columbus, Ohio, and this all happened back in 2006.
And what makes it so baffling right from the get-go is the security footage. We know, the records clearly show Brian walking into the bar. It was around 1:05 a.m., early morning, April 1st, 2006.
Yeah, you see him go in. But here's the part that just doesn't make sense, and the material really hammers this home. There were, 16 cameras covering the building's entrances and exits?
16, yeah. Supposedly covering everything.
And despite all that, there is zero footage of Brian leaving. Absolutely none. Not from the main public door, not from the service exit they sometimes mention. He goes in.
And poof, according to the tapes, he just never comes back out.
It's wild.
So the basic question the information presents is just stark, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you believe that footage, if it's complete and accurate, Brian Shaffer never left the bar. It's like a real-world vanishing act.
Right.
And as we dig into the details from the sources you've given us, it honestly just gets stranger. So our goal here is to unpack all that, look at the facts as we know them, and just try to grapple with this case that's, it's been cold for almost 20 years now.
Okay, so let's paint a bit more of the picture based on the sources. It was April Fool's Day, 2006. Weird timing, huh?
Yeah, the date adds another layer, though probably just coincidence.
Probably. So Brian was out with friends, just a typical Friday night, hitting some bars in Columbus. They end up at the Ugly Tuna Saloona. And despite the name, the sources say it was a popular spot. Crowded, definitely not the kind of place you'd think someone could just disappear from unnoticed.
It was lively. Music, lots of people milling around, security staff present.
Mm-hmm.
Brian was with friends earlier in the evening, but apparently they got separated inside the Ugly Tuna.
Okay.
And then after that camera catches him going in at 1:15 a.m., That's it. Just nothing. The whole case, as the sources really highlight, hinges so much on this negative evidence, the lack of footage showing him walk out.
It really forces you to ask how. How does a person just vanish from a place that's supposedly blanketed by 16 cameras? If the cameras didn't catch him leaving, does that automatically mean he couldn't have left?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And this is where the material you've provided starts digging into the different theories people have kicked around over the years.
Precisely. If we take the footage at face value, that it didn't see him leave, then the theories try to explain either how that was possible or, what else might have gone down.
Okay, like what?
Well, one idea the sources mention is this possibility of an employee exit. Maybe a backdoor service route, something like that.
Right, something the public wouldn't normally use, maybe not watched as closely.
That's the line of thought. But the material you shared throws cold water on that pretty quickly. Apparently that route was blocked by construction work at the time.
Ah.
Yeah, the sources describe it as being pretty dangerous, difficult to even get through. It makes you question why anyone, especially someone maybe a bit tipsy but not totally out of it, would even try going that way.
So it's mentioned, but the sources seem to suggest it's, highly unlikely.
Very unlikely, yeah.
Yeah.
It seems largely dismissed as a realistic way out.
Okay, so scratch the employee exit. The main exits are covered. What else could possibly explain him not being seen leaving on camera? That brings us to the darker possibility, foul play.
This is the theory that something violent happened to Brian inside the bar. And then somehow his body was removed without triggering any of the cameras.
How would that even work? Concealed somehow? Moved when cameras were down or not monitored?
Those are the kinds of speculations. But the thing that the sources keep coming back to, again and again, is the total lack of physical evidence. Absolutely none.
And that's huge, isn't it? I mean, a busy bar. If there was some kind of violent altercation, something bad enough to lead to a death and needing to hide a body, you'd expect something to be found.
You really would. The sources are clear. Investigators found no signs of a struggle inside the Ugly Tuna. No blood evidence, no big disturbance reported, nothing concrete to suggest foul play actually happened right there on the premises.
So without any corroborating evidence, that theory, maybe an initial thought, it struggles to get much traction according to the material.
It really does. It's a common theory in missing persons cases, naturally, but here the lack of evidence is just striking.
Which sort of pushes us towards the other main theory, the one that, as you said, the sources kind of label as getting weird. The idea that Brian maybe planned this, that he vanished on purpose.
Yeah, this theory suggests Brian just walked away, intentionally disappeared to start a new life somewhere else. But again, the material you provided lays out some pretty compelling reasons why that seems off.
Like what?
Well, he was literally on the verge of graduating from medical school. It's a huge commitment, years of hard work. It wasn't just drifting.
Right, and his personal life.
His mother had passed away recently, which was undoubtedly very tough for him. But on the other hand, he was reportedly planning to propose to his long-term girlfriend very soon, like maybe even during a trip they had planned.
So the picture the sources paint is someone with massive life goals right in front of him. Professional success, serious personal commitment. It just doesn't really fit the profile of someone about to ditch everything, does it?
It really doesn't.
Yeah.
It makes the voluntary disappearance theory, while you can't ever rule it out completely, I suppose, seem highly improbable based on the circumstances described in the material. It just doesn't seem to align with where his life was apparently heading.
And adding to the layers of sadness here, the material mentions what happened to his father.
Oh, it's just heartbreaking. His dad, Randy Shaffer, spent years searching relentlessly for Brian. Never gave up hope. And then, tragically, he himself died in this completely unrelated freak accident. A tree branch fell during a storm.
God, that's awful. It just highlights the terrible, ongoing toll this mystery took on his family. No closure, just years of searching ending like that.
It's devastating. And throughout all the searching, all the theories, all the analysis presented in the material you shared, it always comes back to that baffling security footage.
Yeah.
Those 16 cameras. If you accept what they show, or rather what they don't show, it presents a scenario that feels almost impossible.
So as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, we're right back where we started, facing this core, almost unbelievable mystery. How did Brian Shaffer walk into the Ugly Tuna Saloona on April 1st, 2006? And then, according to all that meticulously reviewed footage, just never walk out again?
Nearly 20 years later, there's still no answer.
Yeah.
No real leads have surfaced that make sense of the footage or tell us where Brian is or what happened to him.
Just questions. And the awful grief for his family, especially knowing his father searched for so long.
Exactly. And that fundamental puzzle from the material remains. If that footage tells the whole story, Brian Shaffer did not leave that bar through any normal exit.
So it leaves a really tough question for you, the listener, thinking about all this information. Given everything we've talked through today, from the footage that seems so definitive, the unlikely alternative exits, the lack of any foul play evidence, the details suggesting he wouldn't just leave. What do you think?
Yeah, what's your take? Do the sources leave enough doubt about the camera system itself? Was there maybe a blind spot, a malfunction? Or does the weight of everything point, however strange it seems, to something happening inside that bar that somehow evaded all detection? Or could he have pulled off a vanishing act that just seems totally out of character based on everything we know about his life at the time?
It really is one of those mysteries that just sticks with you, isn't it? Truly confounding.